Good morning, everybody. You are currently listening to a Tall Girls podcast hosted by a tall girl named India. I hope everyone is doing well today. Before I get into this episode, I do want to say make sure you are following me on my socials at a Tall Girls podcast on Instagram, TikTok, and Pinterest so that you can stay up to date on all of the latest episodes and check out some super relatable, super hilarious tall girl content. That'll be linked below, so after you listen to this episode, or depending on what device you're listening on, maybe if you're listening on your phone or something like that, you could just click the link right now and still listen to this podcast episode. You know, we love multitaskers. Multitasking is a trend. Is it really a trend? I don't even think it. Multitasking has been the thing since day one, even though they're like, yeah, multitasking, can you ever really effectively get stuff done? It's like, girl, yes, you can listen to this podcast episode and follow me on my socials all at the same time. Ain't that something? So y'all most definitely know what the vibe is. And when you go to check out that links, whatever it may be, underneath that, you will see a link to leave me a review. Make sure you do that as well. And let me know how tall you are. I'm genuinely curious. I'm absolutely certain. And I also absolutely love seeing how 85% of my listeners are significantly taller than me. Half of y'all be over 6 feet and the rest of y'all be over 5'10" and a half. And well, it's really 5'11", but you know what I mean. But this is a podcast for the tall girlies. Honestly, this is a podcast for all girlies. We're here for self-acceptance, height acceptance, self-improvement, all that stuff for all girlies, not just the tall girlies. And guys, everybody, okay? We're all inclusive here. Anyways, I hope everyone had a happy holidays thus far, whatever you celebrate, because by the time this episode goes up, it will be after all the holidays are done. I think Hanukkah's going to be done, Kwanzaa's going to be done, Christmas for sure is done, all of that is going to be done. So I think that it would be, it would make sense to start talking about the topic of reinvention as we start getting closer to the end of 2022. We're headed into the new year already. 2023 is literally in a few days. This weekend, if you're listening to this, like the time that the episode comes out, I will be posting this at Thursday, the 29th or 7th? 29th. Yes. This weekend is literally the new year. Is going to be 2023 on Sunday, and I can't believe we're already closing out 2022. And that's why I thought it would be nice to talk about the topic of reinvention or reinventing yourself. This was actually inspired by a YouTuber named My Fat Me. If you watch her consistently, hit me up, let me know, because I like watching her too. I fell so behind on all of her videos because school and life. But now that I have a little bit of extra time on my hands, now that finals and school and all that stuff is over, I have been catching up on her stuff. And one of her YouTube videos that I watched was on reinvention. And what was it? It was like a toxic trend. She was trying to say that the trend was toxic. And she explained how we see people on TikTok and social media like, yeah, reinvent yourself with me, and creating vision boards for this new quote unquote best versions of themselves and their new hobbies and new habits and new wardrobe and whatever. And she did that. Like, she tried to do that, or she did that, the vision boards and creating a vision board of the new version of herself with all the new hobbies and habits and all that good stuff. But when she was in different settings, well, okay, let me backtrack. An example is that one of her goals or one of her habits or whatever, or part of the persona of the new best version of herself, was she would be more social and more outgoing. And in certain social settings, when she was out with friends, a group of people, or maybe even an event, and she wasn't that girl, she wasn't that social, that outgoing version of herself that she wanted to be, she would beat herself up for it and went from comparing herself to others to comparing herself to a version of herself, her own self, that didn't even exist, and feeling bad for not changing fast enough. And I I really resonated with that. I really felt that, especially with the end of 2022, because for this entire year, I said that I just wanted to step outside of my comfort zone, whether it was with like this podcast or redoing my wardrobe or even being in school and interacting with people, and even with working. Like I started, getting closer to my ideal career this year because I tried to step out of my comfort zone, because that was my goal, to step out of my comfort zone. And without a doubt, I really did all of that. I did step out of my comfort zone a lot. Like I was brave enough to do what 2021 India wouldn't even imagine doing, but I still had my moments. I still had my moments where I would wuss out, if you will, coward out, same thing. I wouldn't talk to that particular person, or I wouldn't raise my hand in class, or I wouldn't present my idea. And I would just get so mad at myself. I would be in my head for hours on end, especially right after that moment. Like during the moment where I wouldn't do it, I wasn't thinking too much about it, but then right after that moment, I would just be like, why didn't I just do that? I'm completely capable. I'm completely qualified. I am entertaining. People would want to get to know me. Why didn't I take that step? I was supposed to, because my resolution, my goal was to step out of my comfort zone. And I would literally yell at myself in my head. I'm like, oh my gosh, you just missed this opportunity. You'll never get that opportunity back. And yada, yada, yada. You're a bad person. I can't believe you did this. You did all of this for what? Just so you wouldn't do this? Yes, it was intense. It would get really, really intense in my head. I'm telling you, I would get so mad at myself for not doing any of that, any of the things that fell under the umbrella of stepping out of my comfort zone. And now I really had to come to terms with the fact that I put way too much pressure on myself and set really high and sometimes unrealistic expectations on myself, because we can't, I saw a TikTok that was like, if you don't want to be disappointed, don't set any expectations on other people. And I'm like, yeah, crystal clear, makes sense. Once I stopped setting expectations for other people, I felt better. But then I guess I redirected that on myself. I put even more expectations and more pressure on myself. And I would always just be wondering why I didn't do that thing that would qualify as me stepping out of my comfort zone. Why couldn't I do that? Why was I scared? I keep telling myself, or at least I try to keep telling myself, do it scared, but why couldn't I do it? Why did I back out? If I'm supposed to do that, then it would have happened. Does that make sense? So there was this one time where I was supposed to go and talk in front of a group of people about something I was really passionate about. But of course I was called out to go first. I was like, why did you have to call me out to go first? I usually like to go second or third, believe it or not. I don't like to go last, and I don't like to go first. I like to go second or third because I want to see how other people do it and then kind of like reframe how I do it. It's weird, I know, but that's what I prefer. But I was called to go first, and I was like, shoot, and mind you, I had a whole spiel prepared. I had 3 pages in my notes app on my phone prepared to talk about this thing that I'm passionate about. And I already knew that I was going to go off topic. So I probably would have been up there 10, 15 minutes just blabbering. But literally right up to that moment before I got called out first, I was like, yeah, I got this, I'm gonna do it, and yada yada yada. But the second I heard, India, you want to go first, I was like, and it's just, I just sat there, I just looked at the person and then looked away and then looked at the person. And I was like, because, I did not want to go first. And it's like, I wanted to go, but I just didn't want to embarrass myself. I didn't want to embarrass myself. And turns out by doing that, by, quote unquote, wussing out, cowarding out, I did save myself the embarrassment because everybody else did something similar, but completely different from what I was expecting to do. I was just going to talk. I was just going to ramble. I was just going to go on and on. But these people had literal demonstrations. And I was like, I did not have a demonstration prepared. So yeah, I was kind of mad at that I wussed out and was like, oh my gosh, like I'm actually passionate about this and I really want to talk about it. I like sharing this with other people. But because I didn't have the demonstration that would engage other people, then looking back at it now, I'm like, it made sense that I went with my gut feeling. And the fact that I was called out first, like there was a reason why I was called out first. So I wouldn't go because I don't like going first. And I stand on that. So I think that happened for a reason. A, because I did save myself the embarrassment, and B, it really humbled me. It really did humble me. But I feel like I'm getting off track. But nonetheless, I held myself back for a reason. Whether the reason was good or bad is a different story, but I think partially good, partially bad. It's a little bit in the middle. But to save myself from the embarrassment and to also use that particular moment sometime in the future, which is basically now because this happened a couple weeks ago, to give me the courage to do something even better in the future, if that makes sense. So this is me in the future, using the moment to give me courage to do something that I'm going to do next semester. I don't know. But I'm realizing slowly that I don't constantly need to do something different, if that makes sense. I don't need to constantly step out of my comfort zone. I don't always have to take risks. Sometimes it's better to just slow down for a sec. I'm realizing that with taking risks and stepping out of my comfort zone, that is sparking change in my life. And I have taken a lot of risks. I've done a lot of things that stepped out of my comfort zone. Even if it's small, even if it's just something as small as showing up to an interview, showing up to a meeting, showing up to class, showing up to that event or outing at school. Just showing up is even taking a risk and stepping out of your comfort zone because it's something I haven't done before, or haven't done in a while. And I'm realizing that in doing that and taking those small steps and taking those small risks and taking those small things to step out of my comfort zone, it is sparking so much change in my life that I feel like life is going a little bit too fast. There's just so much going on and I'm trying to adapt to all of the new things, and it just feels like it's going fast. Like, next thing you know, it's 9 p.m. It's time to sleep. Wake up the next day and, it's already the afternoon. Time to eat lunch. It's like 3 weeks later. It's like, where has the time gone? And, this is your reminder for the day to just slow down and take a breath. Like, we get it. You have long legs and you can walk a mile in a minute, but that doesn't mean you have to go through life in a minute. Oof. See what I did there? Here we go again with how being tall is a metaphor for life. But slow down physically and figuratively. Don't rush the process. And that's what I'm starting to really grapple with from all of these things that I did, especially with these unrealistic expectations and the pressure. Like, don't rush the process either with these expectations and this pressure. Like, if you're 13, 14, 15, 16, even 30 listening to this podcast and you struggle with anything involving your self-acceptance or loving yourself or loving your height, don't force yourself into this new quote-unquote best version of yourself when you're not even done with this phase of life that you're currently in, if that makes sense. Even if it feels bad, even if it feels like everything is in shambles and, you just feel bad about yourself, or you just feel bad about the current situation you're in, or you feel bad about life in general right now, it's also preparing you for the good things that are coming in the future. because we do need the bad things in our life to help us appreciate the good moments even more. And trust me that forcing anything, even in a bad situation, when you're trying, even if your intentions are good and you're trying to get yourself out of a bad situation, forcing anything is not a good thing. Even loving yourself, even forcing that. And I'm going to be real, I used to hate being tall. Like, I hated being tall, and I still do. JK, just joking. But when I started to accept my height, embrace my height, and love my height, that was the first step to accepting my full self and embracing my full self and loving my full self. And it took almost 2 years of having this podcast, plus 18 years before that. So a grand total of 20 years before I kind of started liking being tall and kind of started liking myself. It just takes that one small step. So you don't need to rush into anything big, anything major. There doesn't have to be this major, oh my gosh, what's the word? Realization or major epiphany or this major event that has to happen to just spark the change that you're looking for. Whether you're looking for a change in yourself, in your life, in your relationships with others, whatever it may be. But it just takes a small, tiny step. I be seeing TikToks that are like, yeah, I get 1% better each day. And I'm like, girl, 0.5% better each day, but it's better than zero. It's better than zero. So don't feel pressured. Don't pressure yourself. Don't set these high expectations for yourself to completely reinvent yourself in 2023. And just take your time to realize how far you've actually come in 2022. Okay, we are proud of you. I'm proud of you, at least I can say. I'm proud of how far you've come. I'm proud of all of the things you did and didn't do. I'm proud of all of the decisions that you made, whether you think these decisions are good or bad. But nonetheless, these decisions are the reason why you're where you're at today, good or bad. But it's all an experience. Life is an experience, and it's a journey, and we're living through it. And it has ups, downs, diagonals, and sideways, and in-betweens, and all that stuff. So you also don't need to confine yourself into a box. Say, yeah, I have to change myself in this amount of time. Growth is not linear. Some days you're going to be stagnant. Some days are going to be exponential. Some days are going to go down and slope downwards, have a negative slope. Look at that math. And some days are going to slope upward, have a positive slope. It's not linear. It's not constant. It changes. And you can't pressure yourself to change in just 1 year or 6 months. Keep in mind, you have your entire life. You have 80 years left, 90 years left, 70 years left, 50 years left, 40 years left. You even have 20 years left, depending on how old you are. That's so much time. So just take your time, and you don't need to rush reinventing yourself. And that's basically what I wanted to say. Don't feel pressured to reinvent yourself wholeheartedly. Yes, I'm all for it. If you want to change, if you want to completely change everything in your life, go for it. But just, you don't need to rush, and you don't need to do it in a confined period of time. That was my message for today. So yeah, I'm super grateful that you made it this far. And believe it or not, I think this is actually the last week of Podmas, even though it's after Christmas. But we did Podmas this year, and I'm happy that I did Podmas. I was pretty excited for it, and I'm glad that I got through it. So thank you so much. If you listen to all of the Podmas episodes, thank you so much for making it to the end of this episode. I really appreciate it, and I do appreciate you. As always, feel free to hit me up on my socials at A Tall Girls Podcast on Instagram, TikTok, and Pinterest. And let me know what you thought of Podmas this year. Let me know how you're feeling about the new year, how you're feeling about 2022, how you're feeling about being tall, how you're feeling about life in general, all that good stuff. I love getting messages from you guys. And also, underneath that link, when you go to the link in the description to follow me on my socials, you're going to see a review link. Leave me a review. Last few reviews of 2022, and I just want to know what the vibe is, I think I'm going to end it here. I appreciate you once again, and we're going to do great because we're all in this together. If you don't know that song, you're either too young or too old. So get it together and do your research. But I'm gonna end it here. Let me stop rambling. I'll catch you in the next one. Good night and goodbye.